of you thought, well, let me ask the women in the room. How many of you thought when you got married you could change your husband from doing certain things? Who's been married more than 5 years in the audience? Who's been married more than 10? 15? Yes. He said with different women. 4 times? Really? By the way, I got to tell you a funny story. This is very funny. This is the funniest thing. I swear to God. John Gray. You guys heard of John Gray? Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. He's been married, divorced 3 times, right? He's one of the world's top relationship experts, yes? Barbara DeAngelis. How many of you have ever heard of her? Has sold like hundreds of millions of dollars of infomercials and books. She's been divorced, I think, 4 times? Yeah? I swear to God. So we take her out to dinner a year ago. I was out with Alex Mondosian and, let's put it this way, 7 or 8 other famous people, okay? And I love Barbara. Maybe we should not have this on video. You may want to cut the video. All right, turn the video off. Okay, shh. Here's the thing. I love Barbara. And anyway, so there was 8 other people at the table, but it looked like there was one person at the table who was 90% of the conversation. I was like, that's kind of bizarre because there's other 8 famous people on our table. Anyway, long story short, we're walking back to the hotel, and she says to me, "You remind me of one of my husbands." Now, she said, "You remind me of my ex-husband." So all I said was, "Which one?" And I was just being honest, and because I didn't know, and I thought maybe she thought I reminded her of John Gray, but it wasn't John Gray. But the point is, but the thing is, she's been divorced 4 times, yet she's one of the top relationship experts in the world. So has anyone been divorced? Anyone been divorced here? Yeah. So anyway, I think you're close to being one of the top relationship experts in the world. Okay. So I was going somewhere with that. It's my ADD stuff. There was a purpose. There was a reason why I was talking about this. What was I saying before the... How many years? Oh, yeah. So change in people. What was I saying right before that? Do you guys know, by the way, the difference between important versus critical? For those who have not heard me speak before, what's the difference between important and critical? Do you know? Claudine, what is it? Okay. She was saying...
Sorry. How it's told to me is that something critical comes up, like you start having a heart attack, so you absolutely need to go to the hospital right now, versus all the important things that you had on your list of things to do that day.
Okay, here it is. Ready? Bob, it is important for you. Okay, I'm sorry. Maria, it's important. Marla, I'm sorry. Well, anyway, it's important for you, for example, to remember his birthday. It's critical you remember hers. Okay. Anyway, I've got so much ADD and stuff going. I can't remember where the hell I was going, but it sounded like a good time to throw that in. Okay, so Dave is part of my power of 6. So I have a handful of people on speed dial that when I need something, I know they're going to text message me back. If it's 2 a.m. in the morning and I have a massive problem, would return my call. I'm going to encourage each one of you to implement what Dave says, okay? This could transform your life and your business, okay? And so I just wanted you guys to be totally engaged, okay? And so before we start, just stand up. I just want the blood and flowing just real fast. Stretch to the right. And then stretch to the left. Raise your hands to the back. And stretch again down. And then give someone a high five. This is like the Tony Robbins kind of stuff or something. Hand someone else another high five. And now, if your team won the Super Bowl, give them a real high five. And if you made $1 million in the next 90 days, now give them a high five and say like you mean it if you made $1 million in the next 90 days. Okay. I got you. Okay. All right, now. All right. So, And I could read an official bio about Dave. So let me just give you the personal story about Dave Steck. I met him a year ago. I spoke at the Power of Grant Money. I just happened to sit at the back table. He happened to be the person I was sitting next to. Total class act. And we've reached out. We've stayed connected. And it's been an incredible relationship. Do you guys see those Kodak disposable cameras? He's the guy that launched that for Kodak. You ever hear of a little company called Disney? He managed that relationship for Disney, or actually for, you ever hear of the Olympics? He handles all those kind of relationships. Now, that was in his corporate days, okay? An amazing father. And, you know, one of his sons is in the back who is just amazing. Why don't you stand up? Let's recognize Blake. And he's a phenomenal copywriter, by the way. I don't know if you're doing copy for other people, but he's phenomenal, okay? He wrote some copy for me. I'm like, damn, that shit's good. We need it. Can we borrow that? So I appreciate you for being here. What's that? Could you make a note so you don't forget? And I appreciate that. Yeah. But anyway, so bottom line is an incredible, not only in the corporate world, but 3-time serial entrepreneur, sits on the board of the largest CEO organization in America. I think, what is it, 14,000 CEOs? Took a what was it? What was that technology that you guys raised some money and sold it to?
Digital technology.
Digital,
Yeah.
what are the digital postcards?
Digital postcard. We
Yeah.
launched the first digital postcard.
Okay. Let's put it this way. There's some people they're really stand up, amazing at what they do, givers, help, all that kind of stuff. That's Dave. Let's stand up, give him a quick round of applause, and we'll finish the day strong.
Yeah, baby.
Come on, let's give him a standing ovation before he starts. We'll put more out there, all right?
Okay, partner. As always, man, thanks. All right, all right. Are we ready? This is the beginning of the end tonight. This is going to be good. We're going to talk about getting more through fewer, deeper relationships, both business and personal, and we're going to have a good time tonight. And we're going to start it with a good time. But first, let's acknowledge that it's Saturday night. Is it freaking Saturday night or what? Yes, that's right. All right. So in the spirit of Saturday night, what would you be doing on a typical Saturday night if you weren't here with me?
Watching Law and Order.
I'm sorry?
Watching Law and Order.
Watching Law and Order. Get a frigging life, will you? What would you be doing?
Riding my horse.
Doing what?
Riding my horse.
Riding your horse.
At night?
What's his name? Forget it. Okay, let's keep going here. What would anybody else be doing on Saturday night?
Casino night.
Casino night. Great. We're getting close. We're going to get to it soon. What would you do on Saturday night? Salsa dancing, having fun. Hanging out with friends. Anybody else? Pam.
I work.
You'd work.
I work at my business.
You got to go over with her and get a freaking life. All right. Anything else on Saturday night? Sorry? Yes, sir. Hollywood. I give up on you, group. The good news is this is going to be better than whatever you'd planned, including Law and Order. It's going to be a lot better. And so we're going to put our credit cards away. Is that okay? Yes. We're going to put our credit cards away tonight, and we're going to have a little fun. Now, does anyone here have a joke? Let's start out with a joke. Anybody? Okay, joke in the back. All right. Now, by the way, give everybody, support. When somebody's going to tell a joke, let's give her a round of applause. And by the way, it is Saturday night. So if you have anything that is sort of gray area, that's okay. We can live with that.
All right, well, it's actually a limerick, and it's a little marginal, but...
Okay, all right, that's
all
okay.
right. Okay, here we go. There once was a man named Sweeney who spilled some gin on his weenie. He thought this uncouth, so he added vermouth and slipped his girl a martini.
That's what I'm talking about, yeah? Okay, it's Saturday night. Okay, all right. Now let me ask you a question. everybody's got a name tag with what you're passionate about, right? Does anyone here remember what was on my name tag? What was it? And what's my last name? Steck. Close enough, I'm changing it. Dave Sex tonight. Now, here's my question. Raise your hand if you remember what was on my name tag. Now, if you look around the room, look at the number of men and the number of women who have their hands up. Can you tell? All right, women, if you have your hands up, women, stand up. Now, sit. All right, now what is that? Maybe a couple dozen, maybe 20, 30? All right, sit down. Men, if you saw my name tag and you commented on it, I want you to stand up. Now, there is a strategy behind my life. And I'll tell you what it is. It's called DNGML. Maybe a couple of you have heard me use this before, but this is important that you write this down. Okay? You ready? Discretion, get that down, never got me laid. Now, is that right? I mean, discretion, if you want to be discreet, you are not going to get anything in life. Am I right or not? I mean, you've got to ask for it. You can sit around. I mean, the girls can stand on this side at the high school dance, and the boys stand over here. But if no one comes to the middle, nothing happens. So the important message here is it's Saturday night. We're a little on the edge, but that's really an important message and one I try to teach my sons, that you can't be discreet if you want to get what you want to get. So let's talk about what it is that we do in life that motivates us to do anything and everything. What are the two things that we try to do in life, and why do we do them? What are the two reasons we do everything? The first is to gain pleasure. Everything we do in life fits in one of two buckets: to gain pleasure. Let me tell you what my three are. Have fun, make money, do good. They should be yours too. If you're not having fun, shame on you. If you're not making money, shame on you. If you're not doing good and helping others, shame on you. You heard a lot of people talk over the last couple of days, and was there a sort of common theme related to giving? Yes or no? Yes. That's what it's all about. Now, there's one other reason. One is to gain pleasure. What do you think the other is? Avoid pain. This is what those of you who are in corporate America, like I used to be, may think is your boss. And this is one of those friendly conversations on Monday morning that most of us would like to avoid. I'm not going to talk about the pain associated with working with others, but I am going to talk about something more important, and that's mental pain. Which of the things do we seek first, avoiding pain or gaining pleasure? Avoiding pain. We always do that first, and that's really important for you to remember, because the key to being successful is to teach other people how to avoid pain. Okay? Now, let's talk about the number one source of mental pain: overwhelm. Who in this room, by a show of hands, feels overwhelmed? Okay, let me try this again. Who in this room, by a show of hands, feels overwhelmed? Now we still don't have everybody's hand up, so that means either you're lying, or if you can't get your hand from here to here, life is going to suck. I'm telling you, all of us are overwhelmed, and if you're not admitting it, you should. Here's the situation that most of us feel. Does that look familiar? Okay, and let's talk in detail. How many emails are you getting per day? Remember when Larry asked that at the beginning of the event? How many emails you're getting? Do you remember what the average was? How many? It was 50 to, was it 50 to 100 or 100? How many phone calls do you get every day? A fair number? Do you return all your emails and your phone calls? No. So you've already begun the week behind, and you're going to get further behind during the course of the week. How many clients do you have? What's the most clients we have in the room? In other words, who has a lot of clients here? By a show of hands. Okay. Shout out a number. 3,500. That dude's in trouble. 3,500 clients. Now, it's okay to have business with 3,500 people, but are you ever going to develop relationships with that many people? There isn't a prayer. Now, we're going to talk about that. Even with technology, we're going to talk about why it's not practical. How many friends do you have? 2? Does anybody have friends in this group? Do anybody have? This is one fun bunch, baby. I can't get anybody to admit they got a friend.
Acquaintances or friends?
Friends, genuine friends. All right, now let's try acquaintances. Have you folks had a lot of people that you've met over the course of life? Yes, okay. How about family? Now that, we all have family, don't we? Okay, great. You've got parents and sisters and brothers and spouses and everybody else. In fact, I had this conversation with somebody on the phone from Utah, and I said, so you've got a spouse? No, I got 3. Oh, that's the first time I've heard that one before. That was interesting. Employees or independent contractors? Anyone have employees or independent contractors? Suppliers or vendors? If you add all of that up, there are a lot of people in your life. Am I right? Okay. That is the source of overwhelm. Now, how many of you, knowing all of this, are really overwhelmed, and are you the overwhelmer or the overwhelmee? In other words, which way are you delivering the information? How many people think that they're the overwhelmee? They're the recipient of all the overwhelm. I mean, people are killing you. All right, how about overwhelmers? How many would admit that they're overwhelming other people? So guess what? There's a better way. Now, how many of you understand that you're not going to be able to service more people and get better results? Anybody agree with that? There's just no way you can do any more than you're already doing, because people create our overwhelm. Everything else is generally manageable, but people create our overwhelm, and you've got to understand that when it comes to people, there are 3 answers. Write these down. The first is yes. The second is no. And what is the third? Maybe. Maybe. What is the worst of those 3 answers? Maybe. Why is it maybe? Because you don't know. Because you're wrapped around the axle. You can't get it out of your mind. It's a maybe. You can't say maybe. You just cannot do that. That's the worst thing that you can say. So, what's the second best answer? No. Wrong. Yes. Because the best answer to give is no, because it gives you more time for the yeses. And the only people you ought to be giving the yeses to are the people who are deep personal relationships. Everybody else is a no. Now, too many people create too little results, and this is what you look like when you go through life the way you're going through. Does that look familiar? A lot of people chasing you for a lot of stuff, and you just don't want to be in that position. So let me tell you about the moment that changed my life. About 6 years ago, I had one of the early Palm Pilots. Everybody knows what a Palm Pilot is? A PDA, right? I had one of the early Palm Pilots, and one day the battery went dead. Now, I don't know how many of you knew this, but I didn't. How many had this problem? Holy shit. Really? Raise your hands again. Oh my God. Did you lose your contacts? I thought I was the freaking Lone Ranger. I mean, that is unbelievable. Think about that. Do that again. Oh my God, look at all the sad people around this room, because I was one of them. Now, all of us hoped that our laptop was backing up, right? Unfortunately, mine didn't. How many else's didn't? Look at this. And you lose all your names. How do you feel? I don't know. If you're like me, I'm a type A. So if you're like me, I am panicked. I mean, honest to God, anybody here was panicked when they lost all their names? Okay, so the memory went with it. I lost 3,000 contacts, not just until I replaced the battery, but forever. Anybody seen the movie Sandlot, where the guy goes, forever? I mean, that's exactly how I felt, and it was sickening. In fact, it was so bad that I couldn't sleep. I mean, all I could think about was 3,000 names. I mean, that was several years ago. I decided that I was going to change something. And the reason that it changed is because I had one of my JMEs. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I use this expression fairly often, and it was one of my Jerry Maguire epiphanies. Now, how many people saw the movie Jerry Maguire? Okay? Everybody. Do you remember when he wakes up and he's just beside himself and he goes after it and he's just so passionate about finding a solution? And that's how I felt. And what I really realized is that I didn't know the vast majority of those people. Maybe I met you on an airplane, Betty. We had a great conversation. We haven't spoken since, but I exchanged information. I loaded it religiously into my PDA. Well, guess what? There are a lot of those people that are in your contact list. Remember, contact list. I had a lot of those people. I just didn't even know them. Of the others that I didn't know, many of them really didn't know me. And the truth is that even those that I knew, many of them didn't even care about me, nor did I really care about them. I mean, in a deep, personal or business way. I just didn't really care. And I didn't realize that. I was thinking about quantity, not quality. So the question was, why would anyone that didn't care do anything for you or me? And why would I do anything for them? And the answer is, we wouldn't. We just plain wouldn't. So the truth is, I lost 3,000 names, and it didn't even matter. In fact, it was absolutely the best thing that ever happened to me, because 6 years ago, it changed my life. And we're going to talk about what happened as a result of that, and you're going to be blown away. Not because I think I'm so great, not because I think I can convince you of something that's not real, but when you see this, you're going to say, holy crap, why didn't I think of that? I remember this guy called Wilfredo Pareto. Anybody ever heard of him? How many of you think he is an Italian dish? We've got 2 people who do. So for the rest of you who raised your hand, Wilfredo Pareto was an interesting guy. He actually, in 1906, discovered that 20% of Italians, you may have guessed he's Italian, 20% of Italians owned 80% of the land in Italy. A little later, in 1937, a guy by the name of Joseph Durand popularized what was then called the 20-80 rule. Or as he said, let's separate the vital few activities from the useful many. And he helped a lot of managers across the United States and around the world come up with this concept of the 20-80 rule. Today, it's commonly used to describe the idea that 20% of our activities generate 80% of our results. All right, everybody with me? Have you heard this before? Yes. Okay, great. Now, let's apply it for a second to people. Let's take that 80-20 rule and those 3,000 people, and let's just apply it for a minute. 80% of the world, 80% of people do little or nothing. Does anybody disagree with that? All right, who said yes? That was a trick question. I mean, does everybody agree with that? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, so if 80% of the people do little or nothing, how do we describe them? Well, some were maybe raised believing that they weren't valuable. Others are simply not motivated. Do we know any of those people? Yes. Yeah. Some complain about others or how bad they have it. Yeah. Anybody know any of those? Yes. And then there are others that the truth is they don't do much, but that doesn't make them bad people, does it? No, yes or no? I mean, the truth is that if there weren't followers, what would us leaders do? I mean, you know, we got to have somebody to sit on the curb while we're running the parade, right? So it doesn't make them bad people, but what it does mean is that you shouldn't be dealing with them. It's okay if you influence other people who can influence them, but don't be the person that goes directly to them because you're getting wrapped around the axle of people who are less than you are. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Does everybody understand what I mean? Do you understand that in sports, as with my sons, my other son I hope will be here tomorrow morning, in sports, when you're playing recreation and you move up to traveling team and then you move up to all-stars, does your game go up? Yes or no? Yes. That's the key. You have to have people who are equal to or better at what you do than you are, or complementary or synergistic in skill set. That is critical. We'll talk more about that. Then we've got the other 20%. I don't know why that didn't show up. The other 20% are the difference makers. I'm sorry. The other 20% are the difference makers. And we're going to talk about how that splits in a moment. Because what I do is I like to take that 20% who are people who will make a difference, and I like to split it in two categories. I call it the 80% of the 20% and the 20% of the 20%. Now, how many people have I already lost? Anybody? Because some of us are analytics and some of us are warm and fuzzies, and I don't want the math to throw you. My point is that of the 20% that do something, 80% of those do a little, and the other 20% do a lot. And those are the people that we're going to talk about. So if you look at this pie, you'll see what I'm talking about. Only 4% of everyone that you work with is likely to do something and do something big. Now, one of the things that I always try to teach my kids is go big or go home. If you're 22, if you're 25, and you go big and you go under, who cares? Am I right? I mean, were you taught that when you were a kid? No. I mean, when I was a kid, you know, and I went to Purdue undergrad, and then I went to grad school over in London, and I had this opportunity to get a job for Kodak. And my mom and dad were the proudest people in the history of man, because now I was working for somebody else who was a Fortune 25 company, and I was going to be successful, or at least beginning that career. I would never ask my kids or expect them to do that today, because I'd rather them do something like Michael Koenig's talked about and have control over their own destiny. And that's what I'm really focused on right now, is for all of you to simply go big. And the easiest way to go big is go with people that are big, that are making a big difference, not a little difference. So there are those that make a difference. There are those that make a big difference. At minimum, you should be working with people who make a difference. But you should be striving to always increase the quality of your network, to increase the quality of your relationships to the point where you can find a few people who are going to make big things happen. We'll talk about that. So let's say you know 1,000 people. 800 of them, who cares? Of the other 200, 160, not bad. Of the other 4%, that's 40 people. So now I've culled it down from 1,000 people to only 40 people that you really ought to think about developing relationships with. Now, ask yourself a question. Can you work closely and deeply with 40 people at one time? Yes or no? No. Not at one time. Now, this is really, really important, and we're going to talk about it when we get to the value filters. But it's very difficult for you to work with any more than a few people at a time if you're going to work deeply and give unconditionally. Now, are there really 40 people that you want deep business relationships? Do any of you know 40 people right now that you want deep personal or business relationships with? Yes or no? Have you ever thought about that? Are you dealing with more than 40 people? That's your problem. It was my problem. Is more actually better when it comes to business contacts? Yes or no? It really isn't. It really isn't. Because contacts, as you've heard earlier, are not connections, and connections are not relationships. You should write that down. Contacts are not connections, and connections are not relationships. Consider now for a minute that less is really more. In fact, a lot more. So let me start by asking you a question, and I want you to stick with me on this, okay? What if you had a small exclusive network of just a few powerful and private connections? that afforded you the same leverage as those that billionaires use to rapidly bring ideas and deals to fruition faster, easier, and more profitably? And most importantly, what if you could keep this inner circle of confidants away from your competitors? Would that be a good day?
That would be a fantastic day.
And you don't even realize how fantastic it is. You're going to. This is big stuff.